Hi, I'm Jason with Burton Snowboards. I'm here at ERIK'S today to teach you about how to properly mount your Burton bindings to your Burton board. Let's go ahead and get started. So first, unboxing the bindings. One thing you're going to want to keep in mind is all the hardware does come in the bindings. Make sure you check the whole entire box and look for the binding hardware that may be in the bottom. So make sure you're not throwing away any necessary mounting hardware. You don't want to misplace this cardboard thing here. This is what contains the hardware for the channel. So make sure you do not discard that. That is, it's very important. Ready to dive in here. We've got the hardware removed from the board that you didn't throw away. We found the hardware in the bindings. So what you want to do here is remove the mounting discs and remove the hardware here. Right now we're mounting this, set that aside. We're mounting this to a board with the channel. So there's two different sizes of screws. So for the channel, we want to use the black. It is a shorter screw. If you were to mount these bindings, the reflex bindings, to a board with a 4-hole, you want to use the 8 silver screws that are just a little bit longer. But since we're mounting this to the channel today, we want to pop these out. Set those aside for a different day if you want to mount those to a different board. So then here you have the discs and the hardware set there. You're going to need a number 3 and a number 2 screwdriver. This is where the hardware lives, is in this cardboard case here. Toss that in the recycling. You're going to want to do 2 per side. Usually just take a screwdriver, pop the channel out here, the plug there, insert that. You got the little notch here, goes into the notch there. Replace that. You want to put the little notch of the plug there. Usually the mountain logo faces towards the front of the board. Again, 2 on that side. Pop that back in there. And then you want to grab your bindings. So I usually find it best to undo the strap. And to access the area we're going to put the bindings, I usually take a screwdriver and kind of gently pry that up. It just, it'll be a little easier. What I do is use the kind of the outer ladder strap is almost like a kickstand to hold that open. So this is where you want to set your angles, and then also set the fore and aft. So anytime you see these lines in the disc, that's where the binding would be centered. If you needed to adjust for a bigger boot and you need to offset the back, you can use that line. Or to get an in-between, these are offset just slightly, so you can get in-between adjustments. It's almost kind of like, it's offset, so it's almost like an eccentric spacer. So make sure that you have those, both facing in the right direction. So you can kind of see it's a little bit closer to one edge versus the other. But if you're in the center lines here, you're good. But if you do make any sort of adjustment fore and aft, make sure that you don't have, one binding sitting forward from another. We're going to be using a 9.5 boot, so we'll use the center holes here. So this is where you want to adjust the angle. It does have the angle numbers on the disc here, and there's also a little arrow here to show you where you want to line that up. So we'll do the front foot first here. Usually what you do is, let's just say we want an 18-degree angle. That lines up in there. Usually push that down in there. And then we want to make sure that we set the hardware and get it set up into the center holes, the 2 furthest holes apart, but again, we're using the centered lines there. So here is where you can adjust the width of everything. Usually start out on the reference as where you want to move equally from. Usually just kind of get the screw started. So the reference stance on this particular board is a 22 inch. It says that on the back part of the channel here. So we want to, let's say we want to set it at 23. We'll go 1 notch out. 1 notch means 1 inch out from reference, which adding 1 inch to 22 equals 23. So we want to go 1 notch there. I usually recommend, getting things started, don't completely crank it down until you've got the other one pretty much set, and then go back and then really snug it down. So then here, we'll adjust the toe ramp. You want to push this, you want to flip that up, and you want to push that out towards the edge of the board. You don't want it to go over the edge of the board, because then that'll drag in the snow. It can, cause problems, cause you to fall, that sort of thing. But push that out as close to the edge as you can. So then do the back foot. Same process. So back foot, let's just say we want to do -6. So I usually start with it. You start with 0, and we want to go back this way for -6. +6 would be this way. So start at 0. Want to go 3 and 6. And it does go 0, 9, 18, but you can kind of figure it out. It's 3-degree increments for each notch. So then there again, we need to line up the center holes with the hardware, make sure the binding's sitting flat, and then now you can kind of just get it to reference stance or bump it out to that 23-inch stance that we're going for right now. Make sure you have the washer on the screw. And again, just kind of snug it into place until you get both screws kind of set. And then here's where you can start to crank it down. Again, crank it down as tight as you can. And check that tension every now and then. Because boards take a lot of vibration. If you can just check the tension in your screws, it'll be some really good preventative maintenance. Here again, we check the toe ramps. We want to adjust that out as close to the edge as you can get it without going over. We'll pop in there. So then we only need 1 boot. We're going to use the right boot. Set that in there, double check to make sure it is centered. You have equal toe and heel drag this way. If you're too far forward, your toes will hang off, they'll drag in the snow and you won't be able to turn. Vice versa, if you have the heels too far back, you'll wash out and the board just won't turn right. But having it centered, toe and heel is a very important adjustment. So then we're going to check our strap adjustments. Usually out of the factory, this one looks really good. Everything is nice and centered on the boot. If it's too short, it will have an offset, kind of sitting like this. If it's too long, it'll sit way too far over here. But this one is pretty much set right out of the box. If you want to change that, it does have this little screw. You flip that up and you undo the screw that way. Now we're going to check the back foot. So let's say we need to readjust this one. Typically they come a little bit shorter, so we want to make sure it's not sitting off to the side. Usually what I do is take the back screw out, get the strap kind of set on the boot, so you kind of have the skinniest part of the strap right in the middle of the boot here. And then you want to look over here on the side and see the closest adjustment on which hole it will line up with. Line that up, and tighten that, close that, crank it down, and again, make sure the boots are all closed up and tight. You don't want laces hanging out, or you don't want it completely open that way. So adjustments are good here. So now you already know which adjustments you want to make sure you mimic that on the front. So again, the toe was good out of the box. I always look to see how many holes are exposed here. So there is, 1, 2, 3, 4 holes exposed here. I want to make sure I got, 4 holes exposed here. And we're good there. Next adjustment, you want to use your number 2 screwdriver. And we're going to adjust the high back rotation. It's a really good adjustment. By making sure the high back is parallel with the edge of the board, your leg can move a little bit more freely. It's not hitting this part of the high back. So to do that, we would take the number 2 screwdriver. You've got these screws on the side here. So you don't need to remove those, just loosen them up. So then we want to rotate it this way. So we take the leading edge, the high back, push it forward, take the trailing edge, pull it back towards you to try to get this parallel here. So we want to make sure that I usually grab the heel cup and pull it back so you don't have any gapping in here. And that's where you tighten up side there. There. So now we have the high back parallel with the edge of the board. Allows for your legs to roll more freely. Better when you're doing tricks, just better turning, that sort of thing. If you want to adjust the forward lean, that is the high back in relation to the board. So the more forward lean you have, the quicker the heel edge is going to engage. And a lot of that's personal preference. Some people like a lot, some people don't like any, but you can play around with that really easy. It does have this little knob that you can turn towards the plus sign, which will push the high back a little bit more forward, increasing that angle. And then again, you can dial it completely out if you didn't want any forward lean at all. But again, that's personal preference. It's something that's easy adjustable, and you can kind of dial it in however you like. So that is pretty much the gist of how you mount bindings, Burton bindings, to a Burton board. So any questions, feel free to hit up ERIK'S, and have a great day on snow.